Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Shadowcrone here. This is not my weekly video. This is just something that's been on my mind the past couple days, and I just wanted to put out a short video, and I'm hopefully going to be expanding on this later on. This is a difference is because in World of Warcraft, my main class is my Protection Spec Paladin, and I love her to death. It's very fun for me to tank, and I even have now a second tank, which I've been fooling around with the past several months, which is my Death Knight. And overall, every time I group up, I like to try to keep improving myself, but when I hop on my lock and I get a bad tank, and me personally, if I get a Paladin tank or a Death Knight tank, and I see they have either bad talents, bad gear choices, something like I was in a group early on in the expansion where I was on my Warlock, and I saw we had a Prop Paladin, and being me, I always inspect their gear, see what they do, and try to give advice if they can't, usually after a wipe. Like, why did you get these talents? Some of them are completely useless. Why did you gem accordingly? Why the hell are you using a spell power enchant on certain things? Why do you have holy shoulders? It gets really bad about that. And Death Knights, I sort of did the same thing. It's like, you do realize that if you're dual-wield frost tanking, when dual-wield frost tanking was viable back before 4.0, they were using two fast weapons instead of doing the shaman way or dual-wield frost DPS where you use two abysmally slow one-handed DPS weapons. It gets really monotonous. I think that would be the term anyways. It just gets irritating. Well, uh, I started tanking back in Burning Crusade when I actually found that was a challenge time, and when you learn to tank, especially with the raiding scene, because you had, well, Kara was a good starting point. Then you had Gruul's Lair, Magtheridon. Those were great starting areas to learn how to tank, especially because okay, there were some AOE pulls, and then there were some single target pulls, and you actually slowly over time learned to pick up the basics. Then you moved into the medium tiers, which was Serpentine Caverns and Tempest Keep, and you slowly got progressively better, hopefully within the gear as I reposition myself on the chair. As the gear changes, you get upgraded, you start getting into focusing on more different aspects of the fights, like for one of the fights you had to get resistance gear. Mainly, I'm trying to remember his name off the top of my head. It's not going. Let me just pull it up. Yeah, here it is. Hydros the Unstoppable. This is where you first got a little bit of mix with, in my view, for tanks early on, where they had to work on resistance gears. You actually had to have a full nature resist, full frost resist, and you slowly picked it up. And Leothas the Blind, you had to do some tank switches, especially if I remember correctly, you had to have some resistance gear for it. I'm not entirely, it's been a while. But that was the first bit of resistance gear. And then you moved into Tempest Keep, and there was a lot of differences with it, especially when you were doing Kael'thas. That fight was really intense, especially you'd have to start getting better before you actually got to it. It's not like you just hit at that time 70 and you expect to be into Tempest Keep. No, that didn't happen. And then you worked into the upper tier, which was Mount Hyjal. Let's see, Mount Hyjal, Black Temple, and Sunwell. And when they released Zolaman, however you pronounce it, tomato, tomato. That was that was the pinnacle of it, because Illidan you had to have, for Black Temple you had to have Shadow Resist for Mother Shiraz. You had to have Fire Resist for Illidan, especially for Phase 2. Phase 2, you had to have 2 tanks with fire resist gear. You had to have 2 tanks on Illidan for Phase 1, 3, and 5. And Phase 4, you had to have a range tank. Now, obviously, for the range tank, most of the choice obviously is, and still most of the time, it's still going to be a Warlock tank. Now, nowadays, you can actually get away with doing a Shadow Priest tank, but most of the time, it's still going to be a Warlock tank that goes for range, and some of these rules do apply for that for certain roles of the fight. But we're gonna stick focusing on Paladins, Druids, Warriors, and Death Knights. Even though I only play a Paladin and a Death Knight tank, these rules can still apply to your class. But that's what I've kind of missed about TBC versus Wrath, because you only had one resistance fight through. You had one set of resistance gear the entire time. Oh yeah, I know it's freezing cold in Northrend, but still they couldn't put in other fights like they didn't have a fire resist fight, nature resist fight. You didn't have those gear going on. It just kind of seemed out of place for me, because as a tank, I love to be challenged. And I'm not the best tank, bear in mind. There's better tanks out there. I'm a good tank though. I'm actually in a top 8 server guild. Well, top 10 I think now, since we took that one off. But I went from low ranking guild, continuously working, still continuously improving, and I'm now in. Right now we got most of ICC on hard mode on farm. We're actually working on our drakes, but some of these things hopefully will help you out. And at the end, I'm going to put a link to the bottoms of some of the sites that actually helped me out and improved. And let's get started. When you first start tanking, it gets a little bit challenging. It gets a little bit frustrating. Like when I first switched, because my first tune was my Warlock. Big jump to go to tanking. But I found it fun, and especially since it wasn't easy. Nowadays, I find it's a lot easier now, which made me irritating because they're not being pushed, and you also get the chance that there's a lot more crappy tanks. In Burning Crusade, when I was on my lock, or I had to switch to Holy on my Paladin, or I switched to Ret, it was kind of hard. It was very few and far between that you found bad tanks. Obviously, there's still going to be bad tanks that don't know what they're doing, but it was very few and far between. And then in Wrath, I kept finding, especially with the new looking for group system that came out several months ago, with different servers and everything, you found more and more bad tanks, and it just got irritating. So hopefully this will help you out. The rules that I've came to cross on it is you can pick and choose which ones you like, but mainly this is the rules that I found that are really helpful. For one, when you're the tank, you will set the pace for an instance, raid, etc. You set the pace. Because if you're not at best gear, you'll slow the group down, but there's nothing wrong to that. It's like, guys, I'm new to this, give me a second, give me at least 10-second head start on threat, especially if you're like, brand new level 80, going into, I don't know, Utgard Pinnacle, for example, and you got a group that rests their 277, tier 10, 277 hard mode gear. Yeah, they're going to outpace you, but hopefully they will understand that I'm not the best gear, I just hit 80. Please don't kill me. And over time. Also, don't discourage when you fail at a poll or you completely messed up it. Don't get discouraged. Practice makes perfect. And you're never going to be perfect, in my view. You can probably have the best geared prop paladin or warrior and WoW, and some days they have just really bad days. You're never going to be perfect. You'd have to be a machine, and last I checked, I'm still flesh and blood. It's not really easy to get into, too, because I said I went from lock to paladin. Oh, how hard can it be? Yeah, it's a big difference, but over time I've learned and I've kept going up. Also, keep researching into fights, your class mechanics, everything else in general, because stuff changed, like 4.0. They're still continually evolving the talents. Like if you look on MMO Champion, they still, when they do some class mechanic changes, like they're still tweaking with bear tanks, Death Knight tanks, paladins, warriors. They're still tweaking them up. So it still gets a little bit tedious, and it's part of your job to keep it up. Not job, but it's a little bit of a helpfulness to keep researching your class, especially when they do some changes to it. Another thing is also when someone gives you advice, like now back in Burning Crusade, I didn't take advice. I like, screw you, I know what I'm doing. No, take advice with a grain of salt. Sometimes advice can be good or bad. If it's bad and you test try it, just don't do it again. Just go back to how you were. But if it helps out, good. Just keep it. Just keep it. Just keep working at it and getting better. Remember also another rule: to keep mobile, but not too mobile. Like fights where, oh, fire, just get on the ground, move out of the fire. Oh, look, there's this, move out. Just don't be too mobile. I think I still have the Algalon 25 video where I was too mobile in the fight, where I moved way out of position after a big bang and I had nothing. No, the healers were so out of position they couldn't heal me. That's too mobile. You want to be at a little niche where you move when you have to, but you want to keep able to move, especially like Hodier hard mode or Hodier in general and Ulduar. You want to keep mobile in that fight, and just keep up. Practice makes perfect. Another rule is you got to keep everyone alive. Duh, that's the point of a tank. But my thing is mainly the healer, because if the healer dies, you're gonna die, and the entire group dies. And there's that little joke with, well, if the tank dies, it's the healer's fault. If the healer dies, it's the tank's fault. And if the DPS dies, it's their own damn fault. That's somewhat true and somewhat misleading. The goal of a tank is to keep everybody alive. I mainly say if the DPS want to pull off me, you got Omen, you deserve to die, especially in groups. I really can care less about sometimes, like in raids, it changes up a little bit, but under the philosophy, if they pull off you, they should know, they should face the consequences. Oh, you pulled off me on the Lich King, you deserve to die. And that's just plain and simple. I know people are going to scorn you for that, but most most raiders and stuff like that, especially if they're seasoned, will have Omen, kill threat meter, whatever they use to keep know when they pull threat. And there's sometimes the, oh crap, aggro resets and he just wails on a person. Okay, if he does an aggro reset, taunt off, back and forth. Just keep in touch, especially with researching the boss fights in advance, which is another point. Keep up, just research the fights in general. If you see it, you're going to do, like I know my group wants to do for our 10-man heroic achievement modes and stuff like that. We want to test try heroic Lich King and heroic Callion. I'm definitely going to be researching that, and just keep researching, especially if it's a new fight. And like Cataclysm, that's going to be a big thing because they're doing a lot of changes. It's not like going to be Nax 2.0 where you can AoE everything to death, which was all breath. You could just, it wasn't fun in my sense. So hopefully that will help you out too. Just research, and as I said, the link will be at the bottom. Also, I will put videos out on just basic tanking. I put a video for prop paladins. I'm going to work on Death Knight tanking eventually, but working out on that still. Also, it's not going to be easy when you first start, as I said. And remember saying, if at first you don't succeed, try again. And that's the only thing I can encourage you. Just keep practicing and go through it. And I guess that will be it. And I will pay attention to the links below and subscribe to the channel when videos get released. And I hope to see you guys next time.